Thanks for joining us for political talk on another PolitiPod Live. I'm Tom Bickle,
And I'm Matt Nisanoff.
here to discuss current political events. Tonight we'll cover Oh Shoot, Oh Canada, Mom Donnie Takes Office, Science! Are You There, God? It's me, Marjorie. And if we have time, a Trump dump. We'll also have our segments on the media and fascism creeps. But we'll start with
Oh, shoot. Looking at some things that have happened in the past week as far as shootings go, which are so commonplace that it's actually a shame that we have to do it at all. But there was a shooting in San Jose, California, and it made national news, resulting in one person dying and three others being wounded. It's not really clear exactly where it happened. There's a set of stores in a mall in San Jose, one of which is a furniture store. And the rumor is that the people at the furniture store have been having after-hour parties, and that perhaps it was at one of these after-hour, naughty parties that there was the incident of shooting. It took place at 3:30 in the morning, so it'd clearly be outside of business hours. And so there's a video of people running away from the building at 3:30, and around 3:45 is when the actual call to the police was made. They took all four people to the hospital, and one person sadly died at the hospital. Now, beyond that, there is an interesting thing that there's the furniture store that other people are complaining about, but there's also a couple of stores over a nightclub. So is it possible that it happened at the nightclub? Could be. I mean, it would make a little more sense that there was something going on at a nightclub than the secret midnight meetings in a furniture store. But as I say, it's really not clear at this point. Tom, I don't know. Had you heard about the San Jose thing? And what do you think?
I heard a little about it. I tried to do a little research in advance of the show, and like a good co-host would. And I got to tell you, the only stories I saw about it were 3 to 5 days old, and nothing was updated. I have not heard too much about it. Like you said, it's not clear where exactly or why it happened, and I haven't seen a lot of follow up through that from that. It's confusing. I guess I would like to point out that savvy media consumers know that when something happens, any event of note that needs to be reported on, the first blush, the first run through of an account of what happened is always incomplete. It's almost always, there's facts that are not just incomplete, but they get reported and they're not correct. So it's not that they didn't say anything, the media, but they'll say things, they'll get bad information for one reason or another, and they'll go live with what they've got. And then savvy media consumers know that you can't believe everything you hear, even from a reputable outlet, even from an earnest party, even from an eyewitness. The first blush is always to be suspected, and it's not because people are necessarily dishonest. It's just that's how reporting works. The first account is not always right, and in
Right.
this case, the first account was several days ago, and we haven't got any new information to my knowledge.
Exactly. And there's a pressure on the news to report something. So they will go with things, and they will go with what they know.
Right.
And that's not, as you point out, it's not always factual. It's not always complete, but they have to say something. So they say what they have heard themselves.
Yeah,
Or
and
better
additionally, a lot of times stories like this, sometimes the truth will be known, but either it can't be verified independently, or it's just so salacious, or not even salacious necessarily, but it's so, like, for example, when Rob Reiner was killed, they didn't immediately report that the son was a suspect. There were some rumors. I heard it reported as rumors, but it wasn't reported. And I think a lot of times, if it's because something is so sensitive that if you report on it and you're wrong, you could get sued, or it could damage your reputation as a news outlet. And so that's what I thought of when I saw this story. And then I saw that the exact details of how it went down weren't reported. It led me to believe that either it was rumor and innuendo that couldn't be verified, or it was such a hot topic that you don't want to report on that thing, even a rumor, until you've got something nailed down that you can hang your hat on. So that's what I thought of. Also, your mother told you nothing good ever happens after midnight. She wasn't lying. Go straight home, kids. Happy New Year.
There you go. Listen to your mom.
That's right.
So we have, in the U.S. media, we're talking about things like shootings and murders and some very heavy sort of issues, and there are plenty. But then we go on to our next issue, which is our friends up north. Oh, Canada. And I understand that the citizens will stand on guard for thee. We decided we'd look at what the news stories were up north to our neighbor and see what's being reported and how that sort of is juxtaposed to the United States media and what's being reported here. And I think, well, there was a lot of talk about how Canada is shifting its alliances to try to make up for the damage that's been caused to them by Trump's policies. And that has been that was 1.8% of their GDP that was vanished because of decisions that Trump made. So they were harmed in a very real way. And
Sure.
So they're trying to figure a way to not have to rely just on the United States as a big partner and try to diversify, try to make things happen in other places so that they have some safeguards if one partner is unfortunately untrustworthy and harmful. There were other stories in the media up there this past week, including Greenland and the relationship between Canada and Greenland. In fact, Canada did make a statement so that Trump hopefully would hear it, and they were saying that you cannot annex Greenland. That is a part of Denmark and something you have no control over. You can't annex something that's not yours, not something that you can simply declare and get your way. And that was an interesting story. That was an interesting article. Then big stories include a bear cub that suffered major burns in British Columbia are expected to recover.
Thank God.
There's a group called the Northern Lights Wildlife Society, and they had heard about a fire that had harmed some local animals, and they stood up and did their best. They went up and they found the cubs and they took care of them. So they're on the road to recovery, thanks to these folks at the Northern Lights.
The name of that bear, interestingly, Matt, Smoke E. Bear Jr. So I found out that Smokey Bear actually transmigrated to the north. And he's living his best life up there, getting out while the getting's good.
So Smokey took off to Canada.
Yeah. Only you can prevent fascism, is what he's heard to say leaving town.
There you go, boys. Excellent. Another story was that this is an interesting one. Old Cold War's bomb shelters are being converted into high-end doomsday condos. So I guess that talks a little bit to the concerns that Canadians are having. If they're willing to make these into doomsday condos, whatever that means exactly, but the fact that they're selling means that there are people willing to buy. So there's certainly some genuine concerns as to how things are going to go, in part because, once again, of what's happening here in the States, and that is having its negative influence again. And then the big story that we could find after that was freezing rains, blowing snow expected to slam eastern Canada. So we talk about Rob Reiner being murdered. We talk about shootings, and Canada is catching up on the story of the bears who were harmed and saved, and shelters being built because of what's being done down in the States.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting to.
I'm glad you pointed it out, but I would like to underline it. When you go looking for news stories about Canada, they don't seem to have a Florida in Canada. They don't. It's just, it's all hockey, hockey, maple syrup, hockey, no shootings. It's very chill in Canada, if I may coin a phrase. That could be a bumper sticker. I'm
Well,
trademarking that, and I'll cut you in for half, Matt.
perfect. Thank you. We need to see some of that ka-ching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know Alberta
on PolitiPod Live so far.
Alberta out west is kind of thought of as the Texas-ish sort of thing.
Okay.
Wild West and oil and
If you
more
must.
conservative politics. And then there's, you get out to the east. Well, I mean, there's more central, there's Quebec, which I'm sure a couple of decades ago was talking about annexing itself. It was talking about leaving, which, being a part of that actual country, they could talk about annexing themselves and becoming their own country. That fortunately did not happen. And
I bet they're not talking about it now.
yeah, I haven't heard anything. The Bloc Québécois has not. I don't know that they've made any statements about potential independence.
Or as Trump calls it, New Crimea.
Yikes!
Yeah.
Yikes!
I know it. As soon as you started talking about Canada, I was absolutely embarrassed for the way our president has acted. So, yuck.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And then the eastern parts. I mean, I lived in northern Maine for a number of years, and one of my treats, I was working 6 days a week, but on my the 7 day that I had off, I would, every time I'd drive into New Brunswick, province of New Brunswick, and go just search for places to go have something to eat, a restaurant, diner, whatever was available, just because I enjoyed being there, enjoyed going there, enjoyed the people, enjoyed the food, and enjoyed just having that respite of getting away from things here.
Really?
Although it was a while back.
No, that's interesting though. On all those levels, you found it useful and attractive to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. St. John, and there were some border areas as well that were near where I was, but I loved exploring it. I loved going in there and just driving around, and they were very kind and welcoming, and I've always admired. And a very good friend of mine, when I was even younger, I was on a hockey team, kids hockey team, and 3 of the players were children of the Canadian Embassy employees.
Oh.
And they liked the style I would play, so they became my friends. And actually, after a couple of years after that, they even invited me up, and I went up to Nova Scotia for a week and kind of hung out. And very fond memories of a wonderful time, and very kind people. So
I must be doing something wrong. I haven't got an invitation to Canada at all.
Keep working on it.
It's certainly not going to be forthcoming now.
Well, yeah, come on now. It could be someone in Victoria or BC out there.
I mean, I guess they can differentiate between the president and the populace, but still.
Let's hope so. They are well, and with that, that's a really actually more valid point than you may know, because they are. There have been a lot who would vacation in the U.S., and all those folks are saying no, they're not going to come down. And so that's a very real response as well, that we're losing out on having them as our guests. And so yeah.
I would absolutely be nervous about visiting this country from any country.
Yep, fair point. Right now, that's certainly true. Certainly can't blame them. But, we would certainly extend. We'd love to be able to do a PolitiPod Live episode.
Absolutely.
From anywhere in Canada.
Rebranded as PolitiPod Live, eh? I'm willing to fit in.
That will help. That will help us.
Yeah.
That'll help us, Tom.
Soaring. Yeah.
Um, Perfect. So part of what we were just talking about as well was the media and how that is part and parcel of what's going on, or how it's responding is part of what we're talking about and what's happening. And that brings us to our first segment on the media. There has been a report out of New York that the state is going to require social media to display mental health warnings. There's been some studies showing that after your third hour on social media can have an impact on mental health and depression and very real and serious illnesses that sometimes society doesn't pick up on. But they are very real, and we see the results of that, or those who are studying it are seeing the results of that and are sending out a warning. And New York State is taking that seriously with this piece of legislation and saying that they want there to be warnings to allow people to make their own decision, but of course, to give them the facts so that they can make a solid decision. So that is, I think, a step forward. We're also talking about on the media, talking about Warner Brothers, the big sale. I'm sure you've heard about this, that Warner Brothers is trying to find a seller or a buyer, and they have. Although another group of folks from Paramount Plus, driven by Jared Kushner and his subgroup Affinity, Affinity Media or Infinity something, have been trying to raise up enough to mount a hostile takeover of Warner Brothers and its holdings, which of course would not be beneficial, I don't think, in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that they have to do it this way and try to make it a hostile takeover just underlines that. Clearly, it's not something that anybody wants, and doesn't look like the Warner Brothers stockholders want it either, because they're being very resistant. I haven't heard anything else or anything more recent other than Paramount did send out an offer to Warner Brothers stockholders for $30 a share, and that was their hostile move. And also that Kushner and his group have withdrawn from the partnership, which, I guess once you start the trouble, why stick around?
Yeah.
You got what you want by causing chaos, and then adios, allegedly.
Yeah. Allegedly, that's right.
Yeah. What do you think about Warner Brothers?
With the capitulation of American media in general, not in total, but in general, and the accrual of power and money at the top to a precious few, and the lack of the lack of money that the lack of American media and journalism to generate money makes it the redheaded stepchild in any company that owns a media outlet. It just creates such a dynamic, and I can't stand it. I'm kind of a fan of journalism, and I really like the truth and reporting, and I like it when it's well done. To see the weakness in general of what we thought were strong institutions relative to the power and the money in the hands of the people who own those outlets, whether it's the Washington Post or CBS, there's a lot of shame to go around and not a lot of pride. It really worries me that we're in the state we're in. There are some places that don't knuckle under, that still stand up for the truth, but they're weakened and they're shoved out of the spotlight. And the advantage that people seek, so that one company can buy another company, and we can just swallow each other whole, and that you have to grovel to the American federal government for it. It has just created this perfect storm of a fascist thoroughfare where you can of just authoritarian control. All they have to do is cast a wicked glare in the direction of these media titans and it brings them immediately to heel, and the consuming public is not a concern. It's just who's going to cut the check, who's in the way, how can we get there, who do we have to placate. It's terrible, it's pathetic. If you'd have told me 15 years ago this is where we were headed, I would have A, not believed you, and B, been terrified for the future. And I am now terrified for the present. So I don't like it.
Well, and perfectly understand. And you mentioned the what has to happen and who has to be considered in the way and removed and that kind of thing. And that takes us to what happened to Stephen Colbert, where he was in the way of, or it was felt that he was in the way of the merger of two big corporations. Yeah. And the government said...
Arguably the first victim, would you say?
Too true. But then he was considered to, the government made it, not the government, but Trump and his associates made it known that they didn't like him much. And all of a sudden CBS comes up with this thing about how it's all about money somehow and ratings. And well, that didn't hold up. He was the number one guy in the slot.
Right.
And his job was promoting their other products. If you think about it, what he had was, and each of those night shows, what they have is their media corporate back guys, other products and other products that they are promoting by having them on as guests and talking about the networks that they're tied into and their streaming services and blah blah blah. So it's a powerful promoter as well as being in the slot that it's in. So agreed. Of course it didn't make sense, although it does bring up the question of what happens with someone like Colbert next. I mean, you fired him. Okay. There's going to be a response to that somehow, because, why would he just simply walk away? One option is that he just walks away and never appears anywhere ever again. And anybody who has any sense of Stephen Colbert knows that he is not the sort of guy who's just going to walk away and disappear.
He's not going out like that. Sure. Listen, Stephen Colbert left when he left the Daily Show. Who knows where he would have ended up? He landed on his feet with this show and took it to the top of the charts. Now, sure, when you get to the top of the charts, you can demand more money. You can get a bigger staff who they also want more money. And I'm sure it becomes a very big cash cow. That's fine. Okay. But like you said, this is a vehicle for promoting other entities, other works, other productions. People don't just go on the Tonight Show or any late night show because they're famous. They don't just show up and be famous. Everybody's pushing a product. They got a new book. They got a new movie. They got a new TV show. They're on tour. And okay, so it's not even just about the money. They're selling their own seed corn. They're just throwing it away. And Stephen Colbert has, I guess what I was trying to say when I started this gibbering stream of nonsense is that Stephen Colbert knows how to land on his feet. He knows how to do well. They've now made him a sympathetic figure, dare I say a martyr, the Obi-Wan Kenobi in this whole thing, where if you strike me down, you'll make me more powerful than you ever could have imagined. And here he is. He's riding a wave of popularity. So wherever he goes, CBS is going to lose all of that volume. Someone else is going to inherit it and benefit from it. The man has proven his ability to pick up and keep going and rebuild somewhere else. It's just awful. It's just awful coming and going.
Which rumors have you heard? Have you heard any rumors as to where he's going next?
I haven't. I heard something a few weeks ago, but it was just wispy nonsense. I couldn't even remember it. But it just seems like the potential is all in his corner. He probably has enough money. He probably has FU money and can go live on a private island somewhere if he wanted to. You and I both don't think that's exactly what his style is, but he'll probably move on somewhere else and do something awesome there, and CBS will be the poorer for it.
Yeah, he loves the limelight. He loves the audience. He loves the he loves the being in
And
the
he's
middle of it.
good at it. He's
And that's
charismatic. People
absolutely
like him. I like him.
everyone likes him. That's I mean,
Right?
yeah. There's if for someone to say they don't like him, that's only from sour grapes and having been the butt of some of his jokes and not
Yeah.
having the ability to have a sense of humor and take it like an adult. But I've heard a couple of different rumors. Now, I've heard that he and Jon Stewart are going to start their own political party, which is definitely not true.
Yeah, I don't see either of those guys. I've heard them both comment on that type of proposition. Neither of them are politicians, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
they would not want to do that. But there are other rumors, and what I've heard is that he, well, may not be a politician, but he's thinking of running for some sort of an office. That there's something happening, and that whether it's
Colbert?
yeah, I've
Okay.
heard that everything from president just to run a campaign against the Republican machine,
Okay.
or more specifically, what I've heard is against Lindsey Graham for senator in South Carolina. I
Okay.
think that's probably based on the fact that Colbert comes from South Carolina, and
Yep.
as being from there, that's the thing that people are trying to tie it into.
Yeah, he is a proud South Carolinian.
So that would be outstanding. That would be an
It would.
amazing race.
It would.
If he were because it may be that he's shown his intelligence through humor, but the basis of everything he does is an intellect. So the fact is,
And religion. He's a very faithful person.
very devout in his chosen religion, and so I don't know. You would think that in South Carolina, that's something that would be people would be responsive to,
Of course.
and just running against someone who has been so
Odious.
right, who's just been such a sycophant. In once he flip flopped, he became a
Yeah.
sycophant, and
The
it just so
principles of a weather vane.
bizarre that there could be a real shot there, but none of that. That's all rumor. Nobody knows. That's not based on any specific information other than people have said it somewhere. So we'll have to wait and see what actually happens. Or maybe he and Stewart will make their own media company. I mean, I could certainly see that. That's the field that they know and they've been working in for a very long time. So they certainly know it inside and out, and they could certainly make an impact there. Well, now, should we wrap up with on the media?
Absolutely. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, well let's get one quick word in about Al Jazeera, and they're launching an AI model.
Right.
That's what the name of it is.
The core.
The Core.
Dun dun dun.
That's not ominous at all.
That doesn't sound like a dystopian novel.
Right, The Core. Okay. I honestly don't know much about this. Do you have anything more?
Just that they aim to shift the role of AI from a passive tool to an active partner in journalism. So I don't know how they're going to apply it. No, just that we're gonna see AI as a driver in their news division. So it's
Yikes.
bound to happen, I suppose. You can't run from it forever. So I guess we'll see how they apply it.
Yeah, but the initial response is yikes. I mean, it really does depend what you're right. It depends on what they actually do, and we have to wait and see, and all of that. But
I will say they're partnering with Google Cloud, and I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but it does. It
that
does introduce a
yeah,
dimension to it.
that makes it double yikes in my case. I would say that that part of the problem there is the whole argument with AI is that it will take away things that people don't want to do. But what we also know is that's a lie. And we know that it will take over things that people are supposed to do, and reduce people to being, that there'll be people having to work the boards and the knobs and buttons, and AI will do the stuff that media and that reporters are supposed to do. That it
Yeah.
will be making the decisions,
You know,
is an option of what could happen.
so yeah, and the devil is in the details, as you sort of alluded to a moment ago. It depends on how they apply it. You can use AI to generate a pleasant visage. Okay, this walrus-like face that I present to the
Yeah,
camera.
yeah, not us,
Uh,
but
Not
yeah,
yet. We are not it. And I can get that, or a voice. You almost can't watch an internet video on YouTube anymore without it having a very smooth sounding, but humanless voice. And if that's all it is, if they just put a pretty face on camera and a nice voice, and everything else is everything else, that I don't think that would be so bad. Unfortunately, the hard part, what you want to do is let the machine do the heavy lifting, the work. And the hard part in journalism is checking facts. And what is AI terrible about? At least heretofore, as far as I know, and generally speaking, they're really bad at fact checking. They're not good at finding the right data and presenting it factually. And I think that's a critical weak point. Now, if there's still humans doing that critical work and make sure that the information is correct, maybe it's not so bad. But that is a huge opportunity to fail.
all right.
That's my opinion.
We will keep you informed here on
Right.
PolitiPod Live and let
Stay
you know
tuned.
once we have more information about it, and we'll see. We'll certainly continue to talk about that. Another thing we've continued to talk about has been the mayor in New York City, that Zoran Mamdani won the election, and now we're coming up on the time that he becomes mayor. Maybe people don't know that the election is in November, and then the actual inauguration is in January.
Yeah, and January 1st in about what, 6 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Now the actual thing will take place. They say the swearing-in ceremony is set for 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock a.m.
No, no. 1 o'clock
Oh,
p.m.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought they were doing a midnight thing. Okay, my bad.
No. In fact, there's gonna be a handful of different type of events and different setups and etc. But the public ceremony is actually going to take place in one of the abandoned subway stations. If you're not familiar with New York System's public transport, the subway system has some stations that have not been used in a number of decades, but each one has its own character and has been built to be to an aesthetic.
Which
And
I
there's
think is
one.
terrific, by the way. I haven't been to New York, but I've been to Paris. And I know it's a bit nerdy and maybe I'm on the spectrum, but I really enjoyed the different character that different metro stations and lines have. Some of them are some of them are really fancy and well done. You can see a lot of money's gone into them. And some of them just have character, say from 50 years ago. They have Art Nouveau setups there. Anyway, so big fan of it.
Well, and that's a similar thing. There's a lot of artwork that's added into the stations, and almost every station has some either.
Personality, right?
Yeah, exactly. Some glassware things that are built into the station. If the sun's hitting it in the right way, it can
Love that.
on the platforms. It can be very add an additional aesthetic to it. And there's some that just have beautiful little murals. They brought in artists who let them do their things with
Right.
tile or with other mediums. And so there's one particular station that's been abandoned for a while, a couple of decades, but it is interesting enough so that the insiders in New York know that if you take a particular train at a particular time, it will go through that old station, and you can see all the how it's set up and what it looks like. And it's always been sort of that unique extra feature, if you will. And that's where the inauguration is actually going to take place, is down in that subway station. And they are having a public gathering to watch what's going on. So you can be at the outside of City Hall. There's a huge field, and they're inviting people to come on down. I'm going to try to make it down there. Now, the actual opening time is 11 o'clock for people to arrive. But as I said, the actual ceremony is 1 o'clock. The catch is that if everybody's going, that's there was an event a few weeks ago that was for free, that was tied in with a cartoon show from cable, and it was free, and people went, "Oh, okay, cool, we'll check it out." And when you went, there was actually a line that would take you 9 hours to get through. The line was several hours before opening. The line was there, and it took you 9 hours to get from the back of the line all the way up to the actual thing. So when somebody says something's free in New York, you might want to set aside a little extra time, because chances are it's going to be really crowded. And so they're saying, come on out, and also it's going to be outside. And they're also saying, there's a list of things that you shouldn't bring with you. Some very obvious, and some maybe not so obvious, but there's a list of the things that you should not bring with you.
But I read somewhere that you say it's outside, it's not underground.
Well, the actual inauguration is going to be in an underground in the subway station, but they've put up huge screens, so you can watch the inauguration from just outside.
Okay.
So the big field is because they expect a lot of people,
Gotcha.
Which is perfectly fair. And they say there's going to be special guests at the outside one. So I assume, I don't know, but I assume that means that there'll be a couple of people stopping by to make some public statements, and probably the mayor himself. I would assume that after the actual inauguration, around 2 o'clock or something like that, that he'll wander up to where the people are and probably say hello for a few minutes. So we'll find out. And what I'll do is I'll record small sections of it, and I'll bring it back, and we can try to make it as short a time as possible. Certainly not the 6 to 9 hour version, but whittle that down to 2 minutes or so. And then if you tune in next week on PolitiPod Live, then there'll be a little report from the inauguration for you to see for yourself.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Yeah, and speaking of faces, I'm reading that he's going to be sworn in by Bernie Sanders.
That is what I've heard as well.
How exciting.
Yeah, that will be a little bit of fun. Certainly a twist that will cause some certain other people great agita.
That's right.
The former mayor, Eric Adams, has been taking a lot of overseas trips at the taxpayers' expense, of course. But he's gone to 5 or 6 different places. The most recent one is Tablitz in Georgia. And he's also making a lot of appointments.
As in the Eastern European country, not Atlanta, Georgia, right?
Correct. Not Atlanta, Georgia, but Tablitz, Georgia, which is the country. Yes. So
is he going to open up a new Trump Plaza or something? I mean, what is he working on in Georgia, for Pete's sake?
A fair question. I mean, he says he's getting a lot of job offers.
Yeah, so the pizza. I bet the pizza is really good.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe there's a nightclub opening in Georgia. I don't know, but we'll see what actually comes of it. What I do know is there's one group of his supporters who, wherever he goes, the same group has an award ceremony to give him an award.
Nobel Peace Prize?
It's equivalent, surely. I mean, we're not talking the FIFA Peace Prize.
Nothing so glorious, I'm sure.
I'm sure it's probably a certificate. I don't know if it's the same one that they just keep using for the presentation,
Passing it around, absolutely.
or if they're making a new one for each of the visits, because he's done 5. Well, I don't know, but maybe one day we'll find out what's going on there. But it's theater. It's they're trying to show that he's really a great hero and that they love him. And fine, fair enough, great.
Why not? Sure.
Give him the award. We will see how that all plays out. We'll see if he actually gets a job offer, because whatever he ends up doing will certainly be reported in the media. So we'll see what they have to say once he's got something set up. And one last note I wanted to put in here, just because we're talking politics, that a couple of folks, I believe in Dayton, Ohio, the mayor who was elected there was actually a member of the same organization that Mamdani is. Remember when Mamdani was elected, there was a lot of fear-mongering. Oh, this will destroy the Democratic Party, and this is, we'll never win another presidential election because of it, and blah, blah, blah. And that was being said by establishment Democrats.
Right.
The catch being that now several others have followed his footsteps and been elected. And clearly the Republicans are incredibly fearful of what's happening. And although at one point they attempted to sort of usurp the issue, the affordability issue that was his hallmark. And then they turned on that a couple of weeks later and said, oh, of course, affordability. We brought affordability around. And then it became, oh, affordability, what a crazy thing to talk about. You should never talk about affordability.
We're all about it. And by the way, it's a Democrat hoax.
Right. So we'll see what happens and how voters take it. Now, an interesting special election that happened, and you've heard that Democrats have done pretty well in special elections. And one of the ones that we reported here on in Election Central on PolitiPod Live was the Iowa Senate District 16 race. It was particularly interesting because the Republicans, if they were able to win this, would regain a supermajority in the Iowa State Senate, meaning they wouldn't have to even bother talking to the Democrats necessarily. They could just do anything they wanted, and they could pass things with a supermajority, and there you jolly well are. The people, and so the argument from the Republican candidate, a fellow named Lucas Lofton, was his whole pitch for his election was, elect me and Republicans will have the supermajority again. And the Democratic candidate, Renee Hardman, who's previously, among her other positions, was the head of Lutheran Services, providing social services to people in the area. And she was talking about providing services, doing the things that you're supposed to do when you're an elected official. The folks in Senate District 16 in Iowa apparently liked hearing that, because she won, and won big. She won with over 70% of the vote.
Wow.
So over 70 to Lofton's 28%. So it was
Iowa.
In Iowa. In Polk County. So this is, I think, what the Republicans are actually fearful of, that the message actually is one that people are responsive to. And then the question is, when the Democrats are able to, if they are able to gain control of the political body, then will they be able to deliver on that? And that's, that's the real thing. But you have to win in order to have that chance. So it sounds like people are giving the Democrats a chance to do what they say they want to do. And now they just have to deliver. In this case, they're just allowing the Democrats to prevent the Republicans from having a supermajority. So, that's not what we want to see entirely, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. And those results are, of course, heartening to see anytime you have a complete wallop like that. Let's move on somewhat quickly to our next issue, which is a quick look at science and some things that are happening in that field. There have been apparently some new bacteria found by NASA in their clean rooms. Now, the clean rooms are made specifically so that they can get things up to space, but have it go through a cleaning process so there's nothing on it and that it's able to go up there as clean as possible. But what they found is that there are a number of bacteria that have started to evolve and have been able to get around the cleaning agents and the cleaning things that are being done. And they're very interested in it actually because they want to see if they can identify how they did it and if there's some kind of use for that to, put together maybe some kind of antibiotics or some other way of making use of it. And so we'll have to see. Did you see that story? Do you have anything?
I did read into that story a bit. I thought it was very interesting. They have these clean rooms, and the efforts they take are pretty pervasive to keep them clean with detergents, ultraviolet light, cleansers, detergents, things like that. And then I saw commentary from people in the scientific know that say that there is no such thing as a perfectly clean room. The news story I read was very quick to make a life finds a way reference. So that was nice. Perfectly on brand and appropriate. I read that some of these these life forms they found that persist, they have different fascinating ways to combat our efforts to kill them. They make spores that are incredibly sort of dense and resistant to being murdered. They repair their own DNA. So just fascinating. And so they're building a facility. I thought this was funny when I read it. They discovered, I think it was viruses. I don't want to say the wrong word, bacteria, viruses. I'm an idiot. I don't know much the difference. But they found them, and they were discovered in a clean room in Florida. It wasn't the herpes virus, but if anybody, if you're gonna get an infection, why not Florida? Again, we're generating bumper stickers here, Matt. Where the marketing is fantastic, but they are building, and I think maybe have completed. I'm not sure, but it's either early on or they've just completed building clean rooms in Saudi Arabia. They didn't say why Saudi Arabia, but they're building rooms to study these persistent, tenacious, viruses, bacteria, whatever they are, germs. Let's call them germs because I'm too dumb to know the difference. But they're actually building a facility in Saudi Arabia to study this type of thing, to see how they resist, what they do, how it works, in the service of hopefully not terraforming Mars with unintentional life forms.
Yeah, that's what I had heard as well, that they were doing this in Saudi Arabia because it would be most like the Martian temperatures in certain areas, and that it would give them an environment that was close. So that's why they picked Saudi Arabia. That's as good a reason as any, I guess.
I was happy for a chance to dig it at Florida. That was fun.
And well worthy. Well earned. Yeah. Another science issue that's come up is some scientists looked at an animal that had been preserved from long ago, and they were actually able to extract RNA, not DNA, but RNA, which is not commonly possible to do if the subject is not recently deceased. And however, in this case, because of this situation, because of the location and because of a number of the environment, etc., they were actually able to retrieve some RNA from the I guess the inside of the animal, and they're trying to see what they can find out as far as genetics and how this animal relates to the animals we have today, and what evolutions have happened between them since then. So a little mystery that could be solved. That's always very sciencey.
Absolutely, very fascinating. I guess it was the Tasmanian tiger. Are you familiar with that type of beast?
That's yeah. I no, I'm not. I've never actually met one, but I will. I do remember that being mentioned in the article. Yes.
Yeah, if I remember right, and I don't remember reading this. I didn't read it, but if I remember from being alive on this planet, Tasmanian tiger is about the size of a large dog. It's got stripes across its back, kind of like a tiger. Has a long muzzle, and recently, uh, dead. Recently, what's the word when you're no
Deceased.
longer around? Well, deceased, but your whole
Fire.
species,
Shuffle off the motor coil.
not just dead, but your whole line is gone. You're um,
Right. Extinction.
extinct. Thank you. I couldn't summon the word. Yeah, so recently extinct, and so it'll be fascinating if they can do something with that. Life finds a way. Jurassic Park reference
You
number
know,
two.
you're doing it. You're doing it too. Yeah, exactly. But it's very interesting, and it's the sort of thing that you would hope that scientists were looking into to figure
Yeah,
out evolution, how it works, and what's
well,
going on with.
especially at the breakneck speed that we've been making animals go extinct in on this planet for the last 200 years or more. It'll be nice if we can undo a bit of that, even in some small way.
Agreed. Excellent point. Now, another excellent point that you've brought up. I don't know if we've discussed it on the show, but I know you have mentioned it, and that is the concern for folks who drink out of plastic bottles.
Yes.
As I do quite regularly, actually. To be perfectly honest, I found that it's very easy to put a half bottle of water into a Poland Spring. Oh, they're not a sponsor. I don't know if a particular water company's bottles and freeze them overnight.
Hmm.
And that's very helpful to me because I enjoy drinking cold water, but also when I do things and when I go out, fill in, put a little bit of water into a half bottle of frozen, half bottle of ice. It'll last for 3 or 4 hours. You've got something cold to drink throughout the day. But you pointed out, you're when you're drinking those plastics, it's not just the water you're getting, and there's some sort of microplastics that are entering the body. And there is an article about that with apparently there's discussion about 90,000 more microplastic particles each year for people who drink out of those plastic bottles, because as they crinkle and as they move about, there's a little bit of a release of these microparticles, and that everybody's getting them. It's not that nobody is, not other people are still getting 4,000 a year of these microplastics, but people who drink out of these thinner, crunchable plastic bottles are finding a way that they're
Yeah.
wanting to implement that. They also don't know what the actual effects are and what is a good thing. I'm sure there's no good to this,
The
but
upside of microplastics, absolutely.
right, right, right. but they also don't know what the exact effects are. And other than it's not good, it's getting into your body, it's getting into your veins and arteries and in your blood system and etc. Um, but they also haven't done enough research to know what that means. So that's the next step, I guess, is hopefully that's what they're going to look at next. But this is an issue that you've spoken about. What do you think?
I mean, it seems to confirm a fear that I've had for a while. I work indoors now, very much an indoor cat, but I used to work outdoors for years and years. And on the West Coast, it gets pretty hot, gets pretty sunny, and you got to keep hydrated if you don't want to stroke out and die or blow a kidney or something like that. And so I would drink a lot of water, and I'm a cheapskate, so I'd get my one bottle, and it wasn't necessarily the most expensive bottle you could find. And I would carry that thing around for a couple of days or leave it in my car for weeks or months at a time, and just don't think about it. You're busy living your life, and But with those, especially, I'm sure the expensive plastic isn't that much better, but that cheap plastic, it's crinkly and it's thin, and you're drinking it. And I have to wonder, if you've ever stopped and looked at plastic as it ages in the sun, it gets more brittle, it gets thinner, it comes apart even in ways that you can see with the naked eye. I can't imagine on a microscopic level how that thing's coming apart. And then you squeeze it in your hand and it's crinkling. It's very, very tactile and auditory, and you can hear it just crackling. And little thin walls of plastic have to be just throwing off tons and flakes of microscopic, or maybe of visible to the naked eye. They just have to be throwing off a ton of plastic byproducts. And unfortunately, it probably happens with the cheaper plastic, which is bought by poorer people. And poorer people tend to, I don't want to say this too generally, but if you work outdoors, if you have a low paying job, you're going to be buying these cheaper bottles, and maybe you don't get a big fat $20 aluminum tumbler that doesn't pollute your body. Maybe you don't get the high quality plastic that deteriorates more slowly. Maybe your bottle sits in the sun a lot, and it's just as an overthinker, it terrifies me to think that you're running around trying to do the right thing and hydrating, and you're just poisoning yourself. And we won't know the damage it's done until it's way too late to do anything about it, until the damage is well and properly done. And is it the blood-brain barrier? Is it your kidneys? Is it your gallbladder? Is it your brain? What exactly are we damaging? You'll find out eventually. So yeah, I was very interested in this story, and I hope something positive comes from it, that we can either develop better plastics or better public knowledge and use different materials. But it makes me worry for people who don't have the money to invest in not poisoning themselves, or people who don't get the best scientific information before they make decisions like toting around a plastic bottle for weeks on end when they shouldn't.
Well, I'll tell you what it reminds me of is when there was the big craze for having things that glowed. So
Oh
they put
boy.
it in watches, and they put it in the walls, and they put it, in the clothing and in
Right.
teeth,
Asbestos 2.0, sure.
lighting. Right, and exactly. And then later they found, oh well, that's actually incredibly poisonous.
Right.
So this is our version, I guess, or
Yeah.
our generation's version of that.
Yeah. What do you mean you've
Uh,
been gargling mercury? Don't do that.
exactly. Don't. Just don't. One or two quick items I'm going to go through the science issues so we can move on. But I did want to mention there is a study that's going on a particular glacier that a team of scientists are going to go out there and see what's happened to it over time. They've seen it over time from satellite pictures and from other monitoring of it, but they're going to actually go out to it and see what sort of damage is happening to it. And this is something that the right definitely doesn't want you to know about. Of the news outlets that are covering this story, 0 of them are from a right-wing perspective, because they certainly don't want you to hear it, because they don't agree with it. And that's enough to make certain that it's not reported. So stay tuned for news on the reports on the glacier. And bringing ourselves back to Canada for a second, that Canada's health minister is now saying that they can no longer count on the U.S. As a reliable partner on health issues, at the very least, the issue of vaccines. And that's because of RFK Jr.'s decision to change the makeup of the committee that makes those decisions on which vaccines are acceptable or unacceptable. And she says that those kind of decisions need to be science-based. She's got a point. How are you going to argue with that? She's making a sound argument, and we can understand why they would not want to be a partner of ours right now on that. And We'll see that's developing. We'll see exactly what happens and who they partner with next. But there might be sound information on health coming from Canada, and people should be aware of their sources. Let's move on to our other segment for the night, the Fascism Creeps. And there's a lot going out. The Kilmar Obrega Garcia story, as you may have known. He is here legally, and he has been he was pulled over for a traffic stop, and he happened to have some other people in the car. And so the ICE people said, well, you're clearly trafficking humans. So how they came to that conclusion, just because there were other people in the car he's driving, that was sufficient enough for them to arrest him and then to deport him. And that's part of Trump's war on America. He was deported to El Salvador as part of that CCOT, the maximum security prison, where Trump paid $4.7 million to the El Salvadorans to take people, and they were kept in abysmal conditions, not the sort of thing that you would find in the States, where people were warehoused, basically, a huge number of people in each cell.
Not yet. We're working on it.
Right. Well, listen, yeah. Alligator Alcatraz and whatever comes after that is the same model. But in this case, it was the torture place down in El Salvador. And that was all reported in that 60-minute segment that was prevented from airing in the United States, but has found its way on media, onto YouTube, or I believe Reddit as well. So if you have some time and you're looking for something to watch, it's a 17-minute segment, and it's important. It's important to go see it. But in any case, so part of the reason that he was allowed into the U.S. Was because Garcia was allowed into the U.S. because his family was being targeted by the El Salvadoran government. He himself was originally from there. So here he had come to as a refugee to receive protection, and the Trump people kidnapped him and put him right back in the very country where he and his family were targeted.
Yes, handed him directly back over to the people he was running from. There are so many instances of this administration performing not just cruel acts, but acts that are so profoundly, deliciously, exponentially folded in again on themselves in cruelty, like a croissant of cruelty, just 78 layers, thick, rich, and buttery, intentionally harming. Just, I don't know. I can't express how angry I am, and how unfair it is, and how unjust and how cruel some of these actions are. Anyway, it boggles the mind.
And in this case, the Trump administration has gone after this one particular guy repeatedly, even though it's been shown and the courts have said, you got to stop doing this. This guy's here. He's legal. He's following the rules. He's supposed to be here. Get him back. They actually said when he was sent to El Salvador, you have to bring him back. And the initial response was, oh, well, it's the Salvadorians' problem. How can we do that? But they finally somehow did bring him back. And then they went after him again. And here we are back in that same.
Exactly. It is, you say, you and I say, we point out how impossible it should be to punish this person, because he's obviously not, some gang member bent on destruction. We see that as a reason that we should never, ever punish this person. He doesn't deserve it. Conversely, this administration seizes upon that and says, no, that is exactly why we're going to crush this person. This is exactly why we're going to hurt this person, because it's not called for. We want to demonstrate our power to do so. We want to show other people that even if you're not subject to these rules we say we're enforcing, we're going to crush you like a bug anyway. We're going to prove that we can do it to someone who we should never have done anything to. We're going to do it to a person that the courts have said we should leave them alone. We're going to destroy them anyway while you watch. It demonstrates their power. It demonstrates their authoritarian principles, and it serves as a warning to everyone else to get the hell out of our way. Keep your mouth shut. It's insidious. Radioactively so.
And here's the twist, though. So the judge, it's going back to court again, and for Garcia to prove his innocence. But the judge has actually looked at the case and said this has been so bizarre that it's actually an example of vindictive prosecution. And so the next hearing that's coming up, instead of putting the onus on Garcia to prove anything, the judge has said, well, this will be about vindictive prosecution, and it will be for the government to have to prove some stuff this time. So the table has been turned in that case, at least.
It's about goddamn time. This guy has been suffering in and out of the States for months and months at a time. He's gone through things I hope I never have to go through. And we're finally getting the right end of this. Far too late.
Too late, but it is happening, and that will also help with other cases when it goes through and we see what happens. And that's very similar to another ruling that's happened recently in the Supreme Court, actually. The Supreme Court has ruled that the National Guard should not be allowed in Illinois in the way that Trump is asking, that there's no evidence of rebellion and that there's therefore no need. You can send in ICE, but you can't send in the National Guard on the pretext that they are protecting ICE, and therefore there's some sort of whatever the accusation is. But that's very interesting because that has caused Trump yesterday or earlier today actually to say that he's going to withdraw the National Guard in Los Angeles and Portland and DC. So now that's only something he said, so we have no idea whether that's true or not or whether it will happen. But he's seems to be responding to the fact that the Supreme Court has said this is not okay. You're not going to be able to do this, which is interesting because seeing him follow the law would be a whole different visage.
Yeah, be refreshing, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Speaking of the crowd there that he runs with, it looks like Kash Patel is trying to keep up appearances for his boss. And there's a old story out of Minnesota where some daycares were scamming money from the government by saying they were functioning and they were not. This is something that's been investigated by the state authorities, and 93 people have already been convicted on it. And it's kind of an old story, but apparently new enough to Kash Patel to gain his ire. And he's going to send in the FBI to investigate it again and to see where it can go and if they can make it lead to a political opponent, in this case, the governor of Minnesota. So we're going to allegedly. So we're going to see what actually happens. And I think a better explanation of what has happened is in a video that we have. And if we can get that up and running.
Absolutely.
Where are the children?
What? Is this a daycare or not?
This is my office where I make news videos. Did you see the report from Nick Shirley about the Somali daycares in Minnesota?
Yes, he posted a 42-minute video, which I watched so that you don't have to.
He's the only person out here doing real journalism.
Hello, Mr. Vice President. Yes, I saw that you posted that.
Great work, sir.
So, yes, since 2018, more than half of $18 billion in taxpayer funds spent on the 14 programs intended to help low-income, vulnerable people was most likely stolen.
And there it is.
But this has been under investigation for a long time. More than 92 people have been charged.
Well, how come we haven't seen it in the news?
Local and international outlets have been reporting on it for years. This is a Times article from 2022.
But Representative Omar did nothing about this.
That same year, she condemned the fraud that was happening. And in 2019, this article was written about the statewide audit of the fraud. Finally, here's a local article from 2018 that says that Minnesota has been aggressively investigating daycare fraud since 2014.
But what about how they're funneling all the money to terrorists?
Look, there is clearly fraud happening here, but that terrorist allegation was made by a police detective from Seattle who retired in 2015 and has never been to Minnesota.
Oh, well, what about the other daycares in the video? I didn't see any kids.
Some of those daycares could have been committing fraud, but would you let a complete stranger flanked by his security team and his camera crew into your daycare to see the children? And I don't know when he filmed this, but my daughter's daycare is closed for the last 2 weeks of December. I'm glad you care about kids, though.
Of course.
Have you seen the latest Epstein file dump from 3 days before Christmas?
No, I don't think so.
It's not important.
In new documents, an unnamed victim alleges that both Trump and Epstein raped her, and that Trump traveled on Epstein's plane at least 8 times in the 90s. But last year, he said he was never on Epstein's plane.
You should go check for more daycare fraud. Okay.
Excellent point, made in an excellent way.
That's
So,
right. You know, it's just a retread of they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. It's a political party that has absolutely no credibility for exactly reasons like this, trying to scare up trouble, and because the rubes will buy it. It's nonsense.
There you
Mike.
jolly well are. And speaking of people who make use of media to their own ends and have a way of doing it quite well, that will take us over to Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Dun dun dun.
who has seen the light, or has followed the light. I don't know exactly the appropriate way
Wish
to
to head into the light. But
mention it.
okay.
But whatever has happened with her, she has been talking to the media the past couple of days and has said some things about Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. She's saying that he's really not a speaker. He's just a lackey for Trump, and that he just does what Trump tells him. And I'm trying to find somebody who would be surprised by that. I don't know that has there been a question about that? It's not exactly news, is all I'm saying.
Right. He's been licking Trump's boots since the word go. We're not breaking news there.
So, but it is interesting that she's saying it because she's a Republican and has been a diehard MAGA supporter in the past. So there is some value in the fact that she is saying it, as opposed to somebody else who would just be repeating themselves from having said it for.
Sure. Listen, absolutely. As far as it's just another indicator that Trump is losing power. This is his right-hand man, so to speak. And for her to be breaking off and saying bad things about the boss and rebuking him and him rebuking her right back, it's definitely a sign of the times. It definitely has intrinsic value.
It could be, and it's interesting that she's basing it all on her faith. She's saying that that due to her faith in her religion, that the information that came available through the Epstein files gave her pause to rethink her positions, and that's why she's not supporting Trump now, is because of the stuff that was learned through the Epstein documents, the Epstein papers, based on her religious faith. So since a whole portion of his bloc is made of folks who are Christian nationalists, how will that play? Are they going to pick up on it as he's a lame duck, therefore we should pick up on this line of thinking, or will they reject it? I haven't heard how their response has been so far, but I'm sure that will be something interesting to follow up on and to watch and see what happens next. as much as anything else about MTG before we move on?
God, no.
I was going to say, can you take the picture down, please? The next segment, the next issue we have is what we call our Trump dump.
That's right.
So things that are happening in Trump news. Of course, that could start off with how he's meeting with Netanyahu. There's been increased violence in a place supposed to have eternal peace brought to it by Donald J. Trump. And he earned that FIFA Peace Prize, and this is one of those things that did that for him, was peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But there seems to be more fighting, and in fact, Netanyahu has recently okayed expansion of Orthodox communities in the West Bank, which is one of the issues one of the issues that the Palestinians have consistently brought up. So is that something that's going to help ease tension? I don't know that that's the case. But they're talking to each other and they get along very well. So I'm sure that Trump knows exactly what was happening there and exactly what steps have occurred. There's also something about his other hand. If you may recall pictures a while ago where the back of his hand looked to be discolored and very horribly bruised. And at the time they were talking about he shakes hands a lot, which...
They still do. They're still pushing that one.
Is that true? Because I always thought that it was the inside of the hand that actually is used in shaking hands. But it might be... Is it a secret handshake or
facts, science? These really have no bearing. Logic. Yeah. Well, I know when I shake someone's hand, I give it the back of the hand a really good hard rap.
There you go.
You got to mark your territory. It's a very, very esoteric social interaction. You gotta stay up on these things. No, of course it's nonsense. What are they gonna say now? He's shaking hands with his other hand. Has he taken up MMA and boxing? It's all nonsense.
Nice. He does have that background with the WWF, so maybe, I don't know. Could be.
Yeah. I think that's where the blood capsule came from on the day he was attempted assassination.
There you go. Preparing for his next venture.
That's right.
Also, the Ukrainian thing where he meets with Zelensky to talk peace for what's happening in Ukraine, and the night before he spends an hour on the phone with Putin.
And I thought it was the preceding 2 hours just before he met with Zelensky, he was on the phone with Putin. Not the night before, but moments before. That's what I understood. I could be wrong.
Gotcha. No, I expect that you are correct, and thank you for correcting me on that. I thought it was the night before, but it was apparently just before the talks, which is for a guy like Trump who takes the positions of the person he last speaks to, seems like a very interesting kind of detail. That's who he would speak to last before Zelensky.
Yeah. Other details that are interesting. Putin got a red carpet welcome. He got clapping. Oh, come on down, big boy. Clapping, big smile. Got a ride in the Beast. Got a ride in the presidential limo, which was an intelligence coup all its own. And Zelensky, he had to wait. He got to wait for Trump to show up. That's what he got. No red carpet, no applause, no big smile, no ride in the presidential limo. There's a bit of a contrast there.
At least this time he didn't have J.D. Vance hounding him about saying thank you. So see, it's on an upswing.
That's right. You got to grade on a curve with these things.
It's getting better for him. No, the real headline here is Trump fails to bring peace to Ukraine. Afterwards he said about the meeting with Zelensky that they had talked and that they had made some progress, but there was no peace deal. So the double underlining there is no peace deal. He has not brought eternal peace to Ukraine, as he has not brought it to several other places, although he does want to be able to say he has, because FIFA has another award, maybe. I don't know, but something. He would like very much to be able to say that he did it, and he has not. One other thing that I want to mention about it while we're on the Trump dump, and that is that yesterday Trump vetoed a bipartisan bill that would have set up sharing costs on a clean water project out in rural Colorado. And this is not a new project that they're just talking about. This is a project that's been talked about since the 1960s that was put on pause for a while, but initially was set up to make certain that folks in southeast Colorado had water, had clean water, and was set up by President Kennedy. And with the Obama administration, there were some changes to it. So initially, there was going to be 100% of the cost covered by the federal government. The Obama administration came along and reduced it to something like 75, but then there'd be a shared cost by state and local. And it was felt that that would make it more, if you invest in it, then there's a certain buy-in with money. So that seemed to be something that was acceptable. And then there was this bill that moved the project forward, would have been bringing water to 50,000 southeastern Colorado residents. And actually, the bill itself, interestingly enough, was brought through the House by Lauren Boebert and shepherded through as well by Paul Gosar, which, if you're not keeping track, these are two very MAGA people. They're perhaps on the, upper 1 or 2% of MAGA supporters in the Congress. They passed the bill in the House. Exactly. And then in the Senate side, so they brought it through the House process, and then the senators in Colorado, 2 Democrats, wound up getting it through the Senate process by unanimous consent. So it had pretty smooth sailing, bipartisan support, was providing water to rural communities who are, a lot of folks in the rural communities are MAGA and Trump supporters. And this so-called Frying Pan Arkansas project, signed by Kennedy in 1962, Trump vetoed it. He stopped it, and he said that it was expensive and unreliable policy. I don't really know how that's. He didn't particularly explain what he meant by unresponsible policy, and unless clean water for people in rural communities is somehow not okay. So the next step is we have to see. It will go back to Congress, and both the House and the Senate will separately need to vote 2/3 in favor of it to override the veto. But we'll see what happens. But that's something to keep your eyes on, because that's the sort of thing where his own supporters are getting the shaft with not actual any basis.
Getting the shaft and pushing back. This is another opportunity to show exactly how much pull the old man has, and he's had less and less pull lately. This is just another opportunity to show his power waning, and I hope it continues.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Another way that shows his power is waning is release of more Epstein files. Never enough and never appropriately unredacted, but they are being released in drips and drabs at this point. And that brings us to our Epstein count up. If you've been following, you know that we have the day since the unredacted Epstein list has not been released. And we are up to day 3,851.
And counting.
And I don't know what might be an appropriate gift on unredacted Epstein list release day would be.
Stain
but
remover.
There's got to be, huh?
Stain remover. That's my guess.
Nice. Well, thank you for joining us for PolitiPod Live for Political Talk. You're welcome to join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern right here for PolitiPod Live. If you want political laughs, you can join us and a half dozen of our friends for our monthly political comedy podcast, PolitiPod, which you can find at soundcloud.com/PolitiPod. This is Matt Nisanoff.
And I'm Tom Bickle.
Saying good night.